In this lesson, we're going to take a look at some of the mental ray materials that are available in 3ds Max. Alright, so we have our canopy, and we want to apply kind of a glass type of material to that, so that way we can see through it. So let's go to our materials, and let's choose an open slot here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this 07 default material that we had last time, and I just want to go ahead and rename that to canopy, and we're going to remove that material. So I'm just going to hit reset, and it's going to say, are you sure? And we want to hit yes, and it's going to go ahead and reset that just to get rid of that map and everything. Alright, so let's go ahead and click on standard here, and let's choose one of the mental ray materials that we have available to us. Now, mental ray, you may not see this list here, and if you're not seeing this, it's because you don't have your renderer set up properly. So let's go ahead and go to our render settings, and you'll see in your render setup it'll say something like NVIDIA mental ray or just mental ray up here. If it says default scanline renderer, what you'll need to do is you'll need to scroll down to the very bottom to the assign renderer rollout here, and this is going to be in your common tab, and you'll want to hit this choose renderer, and you should see mental ray in your list. Go ahead and choose it and then hit OK. So let's go ahead and choose one of those mental ray materials, and I'm going to use one of the glass materials that is available to us. So you can see in here we have Autodesk glazing, we have some metals and things like that, but I don't necessarily see anything that says glass. Well, if we scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that we have this Autodesk material library that we have available to us. Now in here you'll see a glass rollout, and you could expand that, and you can go into some of those glazings that you had available up at the top. But these are all materials that are pre-made, and you can choose one of these, and you could even modify it as needed. So I'm going to choose this clear amber. So go ahead and click on that, and that's going to apply itself to this material slot, and you'll notice that it looks kind of black. Well, the material itself, or the color, is going to look a little bit different, okay, in the material editor slot. But you can see that the custom color that's being used here is kind of this yellow color. So let's go ahead and apply this to our object, and if you hit F4 you can see that we have the canopy selected, and let's just apply that, and you'll see that this is now kind of a yellowish color. Now you can also see that you can see through the canopy, which is kind of the idea. This is supposed to be glass, and we can change that color by clicking on that color swatch. Now I want to choose something that's a little more orange. Okay, so something kind of along in that area, and we'll hit OK, and you'll see that you have several different sliders and things that you can work from. So we have reflectance, and if you adjust that reflectance, it's going to basically reflect anything that's in the environment. So if you take that up a little bit higher, that will reflect. We'll go ahead and we'll leave that at around 10 or so. And you have the type of refraction that this is going to use. So you have some presets. You have things like air, water, glass, diamond in this case. But we're going to go ahead and stick to the glass refraction. You'll see that there's an amount that has been set, okay, to this, and that's just the default setting. You can add a roughness to your glass if you don't want it to be as crystal clear or as crisp. You can do that. And then you could even kind of add a bump to this by enabling a relief pattern. So this kind of creates a little bit of roughness to that material. Now you'll notice here that this is kind of a black material. Usually with materials that have some sort of reflection, I like to turn on the background so I can see that reflection, and it really gives me an idea of how objects are going to reflect, or textures are going to reflect. So we can choose a couple of different types of glass. We can use wavy, or we can use custom, which will allow us to assign a map to that. So if you want to create some sort of honeycomb sort of glass look, you could apply a bitmap there. But I'm going to go ahead and just use rippled, and you can also adjust the amount of ripple. Okay, so this is kind of a procedural texture. The more you adjust these parameters, it will affect that texture or that map. Okay, now I don't really necessarily want a relief pattern. I want that to look nice and smooth there. But I just wanted to show you some of these different options, and you can experiment with these as you go along. Alright, so now that I have that, and we can see that applied in our scene, one thing that I want you to notice is that the glass is supposed to be that orange color, but we have kind of this rim that is supposed to be kind of a material, like a rubber or something like that. And I want to apply that, a different material to that. So if you'll remember, we're going to use what's called a multi-subobject material. So I'm going to simply click on this material, and we're going to switch to a multi-subobject material. And we'll double click on that, and it's going to say, do you want to replace the material? Now I've already set this up and I don't want to replace it, so I'm going to say keep old material as submaterial. We'll hit OK on that, and you can see that is now put into slot number 1. Now I only need 2 different materials on this, so I'm going to change my ID to 2, and then we'll hit OK. And now we need to set up our polygon IDs for our object here. So select the object. I'm going to hit Z just to frame that up, and you'll notice that we have kind of this black color on our canopy. And I'm going to switch up those polygon IDs, so we're going to go to element mode really quickly to select all of the polygons in this object. And then I'm going to scroll down to my polygon IDs, and I'm going to set that to 1, so that way the entire thing is made of glass up to this point. And then I'm going to go to polygon mode, and just click on polygon mode. You'll notice that it keeps that element selection, and we'll hold down Alt and we'll deselect the parts of the glass. Now there's going to be one more row that I want to deselect, and it's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Alt and just deselect that little rim right there. Okay. So let's go ahead and go all the way around the bottom here. Just deselecting that, because whenever that smooths out, that kind of gets up into this area. So this is just kind of to help keep some of the hardness around the bottom. Alright, so once you have all those polygons deselected, let's go ahead and take the polygon ID of those, set that to 2, and you'll see now that if we go back to our shell, see that we get this nice rim here. Now we've got this black color going around the rim, and I do want a black material, but it's not necessarily a material. In fact, there's nothing there. So we do want to go ahead and set up a material. So let's use standard, and we're going to go ahead and set our diffuse color to black. I'm going to hit OK on that, and then I'm going to adjust my specularity up a little bit. So I'll go to something like 26 and maybe about 20 on the glossiness. And then now if we hit go to parent, we'll see that we have that material set up. So we can just call that canopy. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of these are renamed. So I'm going to call this main body. Oops, let's make sure that we are typing that in there. Okay, so I've got that set up. You could go ahead and remove these materials up at the top if you want. We don't necessarily need those anymore because we don't have any reference images any longer. I am going to go ahead and keep that default material because I still have some objects that have that material. Okay, and I could always use that later on. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's talk about another type of special material that we can use and how we can work with that. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one right here, and I'm just going to call this chrome, and we're going to create a metal material here. Now again, this is another type of specialty material, so I can click standard, and if we scroll down to our mental ray materials, you'll see that we have an Autodesk metal. So if you double click on that, this will allow you to create some sort of metal geometry or metal material. And again, with metals like this or materials like this, you want to make sure that background is on, just so you can kind of see how that's working. Now you have the type of metal that you can use. So we have aluminum, we can use chrome, which is going to give us a high specularity. You can also adjust the finish. So polish is going to give you a very seamless, very clean shine. We can do semi-polished, where it tends to kind of blur a little bit. We can do satin, which is very dull, which is a nice chrome look for something like pistons, like this. So I'm going to go ahead and select those. And I'm also going to select the fan blades, and we're going to apply that material to them. Alright, so if you come in here, and you can do a quick render just to see kind of what that looks like there. You can see that we get this metal look. It's got a little bit of reflectance to it, so kind of like the way that looks there. Alright, great. So let's go ahead and close that, and I'm going to click cancel. And while we're here, let's go ahead and take care of a couple of other options. We also have the gun barrels. I'm going to change their color to something a little bit different later on, but I just kind of want to take a look around. We've got these pivot points here on the joints of our landing gear. Let's go ahead and apply that main body color, and that should give us that green color. Now if it's not, if it's giving you that brown color, you can always change the polygon IDs. Let's see, what else do I want to change here that I have created already? Let's see, got our landing gear. Let's go ahead and let's create a different type of metal material for the pistons. And I'm going to use kind of an accenting color. So I like the orange that's in the color here, so we're going to use that as some sort of accent. So let's select this, and we're going to call this accent. And I'm going to choose a different material. I'm going to use this Autodesk metallic paint. Okay, and it gives us some nice little effects here that we can use. So I can change the color. I can switch that to something like orange. Okay, and I'm looking for something kind of a deep orange here. We can adjust that highlight spread, so if we want that to be a little bit shinier and spread that out some, or we can drop that down to where it's a little darker, okay, whichever you prefer. So I'm thinking somewhere around 30 looks good. We could also have metal fleck inside of our paint here. Now I'm not necessarily wanting metal fleck on an aircraft like this, so I'm going to turn that off. We have pearl, which gives us kind of a chromatic type of highlight, and I usually just leave it the way it is. Now if you want a specific color, so if you don't necessarily want orange, you could do something a little bit different. You can play around with the colors. You can do something like red, and you'll see how that kind of plays with the highlights of that color there. I'm going to click cancel on that and actually use chromatic on that. Okay. And you could adjust the amount of that. Now the top coat is really neat because you can use a car paint look, you can use chrome, you can use a matte, which is what I want to use here. It's kind of it's painted, but it's a very smooth type of paint. It gives you a nice finish here. So we could do a smooth finish or even an orange peel. And orange peel is going to give you a little bit of texture, but I want smooth on these. Okay, now you have several other options and parameters that you can play around with on your own. They're really not all that complicated. And I'm going to go ahead and assign this to our pistons, and same thing for the gun base here as well. So just kind of giving us a little bit of these orange accents all over our object here. Okay, and then let's go ahead and grab the rest of these here. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stop the lesson here, and we're going to go ahead and create kind of a leather and cloth type of material for our seat and our console. And I'll see you then.